Welcome to Medical Imaging Matters, the podcast brought to you by AHRA, the Association for Medical Imaging Management. I am Jason Newmark, AHRA's Executive Director and your host. In this episode, we are continuing our conversation from our last show, where we explored how strong leadership helps foster cultures of engagement, growth, and fulfillment, not just for individual professionals, but for entire imaging teams. Today, we're digging even deeper into what it really means to lead in the medical imaging field, and why the path to leadership isn't always as straightforward as it may seem. In many cases, professionals rise through the ranks from a technologist to a team lead, maybe to a supervisor or a manager, or even director above, often without formal leadership training. Promotions are frequently based on a strong work ethic, peer relationships, possibly a successful initiative, or sometimes simply someone being in the right place at the right time. Now, while some leadership traits like confidence, positivity, high energy may come naturally, the most impactful leadership skills, the most important skills around coaching, mentoring, strategic thinking, emotional intelligence, these truly must be learned, practiced, and continually refined. Leadership is, at its core, a true journey of lifelong learning and even self-discovery. I'm thrilled to welcome Melissa Ramos to the podcast today for a transparent and open conversation about that journey. We're going to discuss her evolution as a leader, how she has shifted her mindset with each new role, and how she is now paying it forward by helping develop a new leadership training program at her own organization. Melissa is a certified radiology administrator and currently serves as Assistant Director of Outpatient Imaging at Shannon Medical Center in San Angelo, Texas. She is also part of AHRA's 2024-2025 Leaders of Choice cohort. This is a year-long leadership development program sponsored by our close partners, United Imaging. The cohort meets throughout the year and will be presenting their capstone projects at AHRA's annual meeting this August in Las Vegas. Their session is scheduled for Monday, August 4th from 4 p.m. to 5:30 p.m. So if you're attending the meeting, we highly encourage you to join and hear directly from Melissa and her peers. To learn more about the annual meeting, please visit www.ahra.org. Now, without further ado, let's dive into the conversation. Hello, listeners. Thank you for joining this edition or this episode of Medical Imaging Matters. I'm super excited today to introduce a friend, an AHRA member, and a rising star, Melissa Ramos. So, Melissa, thank you for being here today.
Thanks, Jason. Thanks for having me. Excited to be here and share some insights.
I love it. I'm excited to hear from you too, especially off your recent Link article, which I can tell you got a lot of hits, a lot of receives, a lot of really good feedback. And for those listening, the Link article is all about what we'll be talking about today, which is leadership and leadership journey and those kind of things. So Melissa, maybe we start basic stuff, right? A little bit about you, let the listeners get to know you, maybe just talk about how you got into the medical imaging field. I think it's always interesting to hear those stories.
Oh, for sure. It was a long time ago, actually. When you start thinking about it and looking over the resume, you're thinking, gosh, hardly remember all these things. It was back in 1993. I was in West Texas, Midland, Odessa area, and I was kind of fresh out of high school looking for what to do, and it sort of just fell into my lap. I heard they were looking for people to work in the radiology file room, which was much different during that time. We actually had to take little tapes to transcriptionists to type radiologist reports, and they would print on carbon copies, and you would file one in the x-ray jacket and take one up to the floor to put on the patient chart. So very different times back then.
I can relate. I remember working, one of my first roles in imaging was there too, where we had to load up the alternators for the radiologists. Yes. So you put all the films up, and pull them all down. And then when people would say, can you go find a file in the secret basement vaults? It was an adventure.
Yes, for sure. So that's kind of how I got my start. And I was introduced at that time to x-ray students. And I thought, man, I can do that. So I applied, got into the radiology program, and I've been here, ever since. So I started as an X-ray technologist and learned mammography back when MQSA and ACR was just coming on board back in '92. Learned all of that, got our facility accredited, and spent most of my career probably in breast imaging mammography. Started that leadership journey somewhere around 2005. So like many organizations, I was promoted, like kind of like I mentioned in my article, we promote from within. Just you find those people that are good go-tos and doers and get things done. And I followed that same pattern. So I started as lead technologist, went into supervisor roles, management. Now I'm fortunate enough throughout the years to be in an assistant director position now.
No, that's great. And it's funny you mentioned that. I think you hear those stories all the time of, are you in the right place at the right time? Maybe you're in the wrong place at the wrong time. And someone suddenly taps you and says, guess what? You get to manage all your friends. So now that you were the people you commiserated with, now you're in charge of those people.
Right. For sure.
Right. Well, I think that, I think your example and your journey is probably pretty common, right? People that, all kidding aside, they do well, they raise their hand, you've been there for a long time, you get to understand sort of the operations, the who's who, how to drive a good experience for the patients, you get along well with people. And, that's sort of, right, I think you'd agree, that's sort of a lot of the basic stuff that gets people recognized or someone sees potential in them, right? And brings you up on there. I am curious, like in that journey throughout that, did someone tap you on the shoulder and say, hey, have you ever thought about a management role? Or did someone push you that direction? Or did you kind of look up and say, you know what, I can do better, or I want that role? Or I'm always curious, like what was the drive to keep going up? It was just natural, or I'm just curious there.
Yeah, for me, I knew right away. The minute I graduated X-ray school, I knew I wanted to take over. So it's always, for me, it's been a little bit different. I feel like I've kind of always been the one saying, kind of in the back of the crowd, jumping up, raising your hand, saying, pick me, pick me, I can do this. Let me show you. So I feel like that's kind of been my journey, is always trying to prove myself and show that I can do the job.
Yeah. I respect that a lot because it shows initiative, right? Yeah. And I think that's something that I think we tell people all the time. I used to say to my teams, raise your hand. If I don't see you or we don't hear you or see it, raise it higher. If I still don't call on you, jump up and down, scream at the end of the top of your lungs. And if I don't catch you then I'm a bad leader, right? And you can have my job. But if I don't know you want to get involved, you're not sharing it, don't assume that just because you did something well, we're going to realize you want to take on more. So I think that's a really good point, encouraging people to, if they really want something, go after it. Now, did you have anybody, just maybe think too, were there people though, maybe some people that influenced you along the way? Was there like someone you looked up to and said, wow, I really get, makes me want to be that leader in that role? Or anybody that kind of mentored you along? That's just more.
Oh, yes. I've had mentors, especially throughout my career. I would say I spent 15 years in Austin, Texas with Austin Radiological Association. And I was fortunate enough to have some fabulous leaders during that time. One of my mentors and manager at the time, Shelly Jordan, and I believe she's still a director with the organization. But she was amazing, compassionate and caring about the people. And that's kind of where I picked up my people side, really learning to care about the people you manage. And that really came from her. The business aspect has been more of my journey here with Shannon Health, with my directors and VP in this role, really introducing me more to the business side of things. And the mentorship is just so important. And I've really learned that throughout my journey this year with the Leaders of Choice program with AHRA. And that really has connected me back to, I have a mentor within the organization here, which I feel like is so important, but also having a mentor outside the organization. So I'm working with Brandy Baldwin, who is a leader. She's a fellow cohort in my Leaders of Choice, but she's also a radiology director. And she's shared some insights and encouragement. And I feel like it's just so important to have both, a good mixture of mentors. And I think it's important to note that it's never too late in your career to get a mentor. So, I mean, I've been in radiology for so long and gone on this long journey. And, in the beginning, you start out just kind of as a technologist and you're learning that role and how to do patient care. And then as you progress through these, being a leader and developing yourself, there's just different people along your journey. And at some point I kind of, like everybody, you back off, you're starting a family, you're busy with that, and your career maybe just kind of coasts along for a little while. And I'm at that place where, and I've said many times, like this year, I'm just on fire. I'm on fire. And that fire was lit by AHRA, by Leaders of Choice. And I've just got a renewed, I'm just energized, re-energized, and seeking out those mentors is kind of really helping me with this journey and kind of where I want to go. And it's funny because I've had people say, well, aren't you only going to do about 10 more years? You're 53. What, why do you want to go finish your bachelor's degree? Why are you doing all these things? And my answer to them has been, why not? Because I finally can. I don't have anything keeping me from it. So it's never too late. It's never too late.
I love that. I'm writing that. Never too late. I love that. That was a great way to say that. And many people think, right, as you get older, you're like, oh, am I coasting or not? It's great to hear that you're sort of re-inspired.
Yes.
And I think there were some gems in there. I think I picked up on. I mean, obviously, finding those mentors and just being able to ask for help. I think that comes with maturity when you realize asking for help is not a weakness. It's actually a strength. Took me a while to do that. My journey was a little different, but throughout my career, there's been many times when I realized when I finally just did it and I asked for help and I realized that people really wanted to help me. I was like, wait a minute, they can make me look pretty good. I can even steal some of their words and change it to my own. And I think it's really great to hear that. I think that's what this program you're in has been so good to hear that you're getting that out of that. And that AHRA in general, that's what we're really here for, right? Is the networking and the commiseration and then the idea sharing of how to move forward. I also heard you said you left where you were. So is that another part of sort of your progression to leadership? Do you think that helped by leaving an organization and then coming back? So just being able to see what it is out, because some people, maybe geography or where they live or the family, that kind of thing. You may stay within one organization. That's okay, right?
Right.
And you may progress up the ladder. But I thought I heard you mention you left and then you came back. And is that something you would say helped?
Yes, I do. I think just, and I see value in both, right? If you're with an organization for so long, you know how it works, you know the ins and outs, you know who to go to, you make a name for yourself. And so I feel like there's definitely value in staying and longevity in staying in one organization. But I've been fortunate enough to, I spent 9-10 years at Midland Memorial in Midland. And then I went to Austin and was there for 15 years. And then I went to Seattle and worked in a couple of different organizations in Seattle. And that's really where I started learning about lean principles and, all the different things that we weren't talking about in Texas at the time. And so I think just getting out and seeing what other organizations were doing and getting to be a part of that really helped form who I am today as a leader. And it's part of why, when I started developing my capstone project, which was to create training classes for new leaders, it's really just kind of bits and pieces of everything that I've picked up along the way. So I really feel like, I, again, see both sides, but was a huge benefit for me in getting out and seeing what other organizations do and getting to be a part of it. And then kind of bringing it back home to West Texas, to Shannon Health, and really getting to share all of that and share all of my experiences in developing this program.
Yeah, no, that's spot on.
Yeah.
Well, let's take a minute. We'll dive a little deeper then. So, in your mind, sort of as you progress, right? And if you had advice for some of the listeners or people that are trying to decide should they take on another role, are there things you would talk about, like how you change your mindset or how you might position yourself as you're starting to transition into different roles with more experience, with more responsibilities, specifically when you start to have to manage people? Obviously, you got to manage operations and all the regulatory side and the financials, and I'm not discounting that. But at the end of the day, to me, and I'm sure you'd agree, is It's the people management. That's the part that's the most important. So are there things you think about that come to your mind, like how you had to change gears or advice you'd have to someone as you get ready to go up? Here's what to think about.
Yes. I mean, I just read an article recently and I can't remember where it was, but the gist of it was basically what I wish I'd known before when I was first starting out. And I think about that a lot, the things that I could have done differently had I known or had I had these skills that I have now. But I think most importantly is just being genuine and being true to who you are. We're not chosen in these leadership roles because we're introverts, right? Mostly we're putting ourselves out there and we don't mind, and just knowing that you're going to fail and owning up to those failures and learning from them. And I think it's just been so beneficial to be able to connect with people on that personal level. I think you have to do that and just be, who you are and staying true to yourself and being able to just tell people. I did have a role where, I was in mammography. I was on the floor working with these people. And then, like you said, a year or two later, I'm back managing them. And I said, okay, now I'm not your co-worker and your friend, I'm your manager. Right. But I use that to my advantage. And I'd say, okay, but I know these things, but help me support you.
Right.
These are the rules. They're still black and white things, but I am going to discipline if I have to. So I think just, being open and honest and, hey, yes, I know what you went through. I walked the walk, but we've got to do these things, and just being transparent about here's our goals. These are the things we need to do. I can help you get there because I've been in your shoes, but right. I need you to know that we have to do X, Y, and Z. So I think just being open and honest and transparent has really kind of helped pave my way with the team. You can talk about it and you can tell them I've been where you are, but if you want to be where, kind of where I am, this is what we need to do, and let's do it together. And one big lesson I've learned is along the way, you can try to do things by yourself and you can try to change things by yourself, but it's not going to be good. Yeah. You need the team. You need the people. You need the people doing the work to help you decide how to do these things. And then that brings them along. It keeps them engaged. They have ownership. People support what they help create. And I've learned that. And I think, by just throwing the problem out there to them, they'll help come up with the solution. And then our job's so much easier as a leader. It's like my husband says to me all the time, work smarter, not harder. And I thought, man, when he first said that, I thought, man, this guy's really lazy, but there's really a lot of truth to it. Yeah.
Well, I think in there I heard a couple of things, which, I'm just going to pull out. I agree with exactly how you laid it out there. Very similar approach I would have taken and have taken. The other part is by walking in their shoes or being there and listening, you kind of gain their trust, right? Because you can't lead without people trusting you, and you can't lead unless you trust your team. I've been in situations where I've had some folks say to me, "Hey, I'm the so-and-so title, right? So tell everybody that I'm in charge." And it's like, well, I can do that, but you're going to run up that mountain by yourself, and it's going to be pretty lonely when you turn around and realize there's nobody there, right?
Yeah.
So I love that. I love the other part was, I think in there I heard you you didn't say the exact words, but I heard a little bit about being vulnerable and okay not knowing all your answers and asking for help, right? I think you said you acknowledged some of those folks, like, I was here with you, I get it, right? And I may not have all the answers. That's why I'm asking you. I'm asking you to help me go left and right. So I like that, because that's something I think hard. Some people think, oh God, I got promoted, I need to know everything. Or now I got to make every decision by myself. And if I ask somebody, they're going to find out that I don't know who, I'm not really supposed to be here, which leads me into that, driving into the question of that feeling of an imposter syndrome, for lack of a better term, right? And I'm curious if you ever came across that, or advice for folks when they get in that role and they look around like, oh my gosh, was I really ready to be here? Or maybe you had a director that left and you filled into the interim role or an interim stuff, and all of a sudden you're now the person in charge, right? Like, thoughts on that, about that? I guess to call it the imposter syndrome, or the fear of, is it okay not to know everything?
Yeah, for sure. I have, a team of, I have 4 supervisors right now that report to me in different modalities, and 1 manager of our breast center. And that's kind of the thought behind why I developed the leadership program, training program at my organization, because all of a sudden now I have this team of people who are looking up to me and looking for me to give them the guidance and, information that all of a sudden I'm an assistant director and I'm supposed to have all these answers and teach this team of people and lead this team of people. And I don't know, can I do this? Do I know how to do this? So I've suffered it myself for sure. And that's kind of why, like I said, that I chose that project for my Leaders of Choice program to help develop these leaders underneath me, because they're a great team of people. They're doers. They can get the job done. They have the great people personalities, but they didn't have the foundation. So they need those basic, for lack of a better way to describe it, the manager 101s, how to have crucial conversations, how to give and receive feedback, how to build strong teams. And just, those are the things that you have to have on your foundation. You've got to have those. And then the rest of the things can kind of come fall into place, but you've got to have that foundation. And then I realized they were looking at me to give them that foundation. And wait, I don't know that I have that kind of time to develop them. And so, that's kind of how that class and this project was born, was being able to, I knew what they needed and I wasn't sure I could give it to them. And then, just being able to give them all the right answers all the time. And so, yes, I have suffered this year with imposter syndrome twice, with, my own team that I'm trying to develop and bring up. And then within creating my project and creating this emerging leaders new leadership training class program. When I was developing that, I started kind of suffering it again. So my best advice for anybody who goes through that is to reach out to those, positive people around you, and reach out to your mentors. Hopefully you have them, and if not, get them, but, reach out to that, your team, your own personal board of directors that we've learned that we need to build. That's so crucial, that support group. And they will help bring you and build you up and say, yeah, you do deserve to be where you're at, right?
That's right. You got this. You've been there.
Yeah.
So maybe I was going to ask you at the end, maybe we'll jump in now a little more. Do you want to just explain a little more about the program and how you built it up? Sort of, I think it's really, really interesting. And also I think the fact that it's not all just you, right? It's a bigger project than just you. So maybe to speak to it a little bit, the process you went through and what it is for the listeners to understand that. Because I think it's a really interesting story, and I'm so excited to see how it rolls out, and when you evaluate the impact and all those things.
Yes. So hopefully everyone was able to see the link article that I wrote about how this came to be. But if not, I again just knew that we were kind of lacking that in my own organization. We have some leadership seminars that we go to every quarter, and it's mainly for, managers and directors and, VP, that higher level, that we get to go to these all day, seminars, and we have materials, webinars and things that we subscribe to and watch. So for that level, we had it, and we do a good job in our organization, but what we didn't have was anything really for newly promoted leaders or supervisors, team leads, kind of whatever they are, or just even maybe somebody who wants to become a leader. There just really wasn't that pathway. So that's kind of, again, with me having those supervisors and manager underneath me, and I knew they needed some developing. That's kind of where this kind of came to light. And so I just started kind of asking questions in the organization. I met with HR first and said, hey, are you guys planning to do anything like this? Because I think over the past year or two, they had tried doing some kind of little lunch and learn with, topics, HR topics and things like that. And it sort of just kind of fizzled out, and it wasn't sustained. And they were kind of like, well, we want to, but, we don't really have the capability right now with other projects going on in the organization. So they were like, if you want to try something, you should try it maybe with radiology, with your own group of radiology leadership. And I said, okay, sounds good. And then I kind of went back to, my director and then our VP and said, do you guys, this is kind of what I want to do. Can you get behind me and support this? And they were like, absolutely. And then I just kind of keep asking questions. Like, we have a nursing educator and we have resources online. And so I kind of went to the nurse educator and said, well, are you building a program? Is there anything you can help me with? And then that kind of, through different meetings, and I got connected with our VP and human resources of people. And he was just amazing. And he was like, oh, we've been wanting to do something like this for a long time. And so I was then put in touch with our COO of the company, Pam Bradshaw, and that's really when imposter syndrome kicked in, because all of a sudden I have a meeting with, the COO of Shannon Health. And, I'm going up to the C-suite to meet with her, and but I went prepared, and I had an agenda, and I knew exactly what I wanted to do. I wanted to make the best use of her time. And so she said, oh my gosh, we've been wanting to do this for so long. We 100% support you. And then the ball just kind of, rolled from there.
Yeah.
We came up with dates, and we kind of handpicked leaders to lead these classes and facilitate for the first go around, with our topics. And then we just kind of rolled this out with some criteria. You had to be a newly promoted leader or a leader under 3 years. So we were trying to target the group who didn't already go to our quarterly, seminars. So we rolled that out thinking, we've got room for about 20 people in this classroom. And the first attendance that we had 54 people, I think it was, who signed up to be in the class. So I've already
amazing, right out of the gates.
I felt so bad when I had to send out the "you didn't get in this time" email.
Right.
But we'll hit
not a bad problem to have, right? You're saying, wow, clearly there was a need, right?
Yes. Yes. So that's kind of how this all came to life, and it's just gotten bigger and bigger each time. And I actually kind of patterned my classes off of our Leaders of Choice program, how each class kind of builds on the other. So we started out the first class, and my COO she was the facilitator or leader of the first class. And it was on our servant leadership principles. And we actually tied in, behind me is our core values and our mission and vision statement, the brightly colored.
Right, I see it, yeah.
So that was kind of our first class. So we are tying everything back to our company's mission and vision.
So you find some commonality for everyone that's there. I love that. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So that's kind of how we started the class. So then we rolled into effective communication. So we had we have a patient experience director, and we tied her into, her class was kind of more on how to effectively communicate with your team, but also with the patient. And we talked about the resources that are out there for service recovery and things like that. And then in the class, we had people asking questions. Well, what do you do when you have to have a hard conversation with either staff or patients? And my answer was, great that you asked that, because that's next month's topic. So in 2 weeks, we have our third class, and it's on those crucial conversations to have. So we're really excited about that. So right now we've had 3 classes. We'll wrap up in October, and the leader has to attend all 6 classes to earn their certificate of completion and bragging rights. And we'll put them in our internal newsletter and broadcast that our first class of emerging leaders has graduated, and here's your new leaders, and they're equipped with the information and skills they need. So we're really excited.
It sounds amazing. The fact that this came together so quickly. Yeah, and oftentimes what you hear is, okay, we'll get together, spend 6 months putting something together. By the time it's out, it's a year later and you kind of lose it.
Right.
Feels like, you were able to, I love it, back to your own personality. You said it yourself. You raised your hand. You're in the back of the area. You raised your hand.
Yeah.
You were okay stepping forward, feeling like an imposter syndrome, but believing in yourself, took the initiative. I love you said you were very prepared too. So when you met with the COO, you were prepared. You knew exactly where you're coming in on. Here's what I'm looking for. You clearly hit a nerve there, a good nerve, right? That said, hey, this is something about the core values of the organization you're at. Mm-hmm. And boom, you're up and running. And I love that it's not just medical imaging leaders too. Like it's a broad base. So this is, I give you so much credit. It sounds amazing. It sounds like a great program.
Yeah, it was, one of the things that I learned when we went early on in our Leaders of Choice class and we did our site visit with United Imaging, one of the things that, I learned was don't just settle for things or status quo or how it is. We were pushed to think bigger and think outside the box. So when I first met with human resources and they said, yeah, great, go try that in your department in radiology. And I kind of went, oh, okay, and off I went. But I thought, you know what? No, this needs to be bigger. This is, this needs to hit everybody, not just, I have 2 new leaders in radiology and they're going to benefit greatly from this, but it shouldn't just be radiology. So I kind of kept pushing and didn't really settle for that answer. And here we are, I already have enough interest in leaders to fill up my second class. So
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. Fantastic. Well, I love this. And for the listeners, I hope they'll go read the link article. I also know they can reach out to you. Is there a email they can reach out to you on? I guess we'll put it out with the podcast so people can get connected to you on that.
Absolutely.
Any final thoughts, like just in terms of that leadership journey or thoughts, advice? There's a lot in here to unpack from some things I picked up on, but anything you to give advice to folks as sort of starting out or things to be aware of as they're climbing the ladder and kind of progressing in their career? There's a lot you've mentioned, but just curious if you have any wrap-up points.
Sure. Yeah. I think just don't be afraid to put yourself out there and ask questions. For new leaders, something I learned, and I wish I'd have learned it sooner, but don't answer too quickly because we are doers, we're problem solvers, and you kind of want to solve the problem and take care of something and move on to the next thing. But, just don't be afraid to say, let me get back to you. I think there's value in that. That's how you earn trust, because my own personal, my organization's mission and vision statement is to be trusted and to provide exceptional healthcare. But I kind of framed that personally and said, okay, my personal mission and vision is I want to be a trusted leader and I want to provide exceptional leadership. So to be a trusted leader, I need people to trust that the answer I give them is the right one, or at least a very good one.
Right.
So I've learned that just not to answer so quickly. So I give a thoughtful answer. I want to make sure it's the correct answer. And so sometimes you have to get back to people.
Yeah.
So I wish that's something I would have learned early on. I had to learn that kind of painfully, but people know now. And sometimes they tease me, well, she's got to think on it. But don't overthink it,
Yeah.
So I think that's a very important thing for new leaders to kind of know. And just don't be afraid to reach out to get mentors and be a part of your professional society, whatever it is. Just volunteer, go out there. I've learned so much this year by being a volunteer with AHRA and all the various committees and things. I think you mentioned the other day that, my name keeps coming up. It's because I'm involved, just be involved in the support and the outpouring of support, and things that come your way are amazing.
Yeah. No, I love it. I think hopefully some of the listeners, especially our members, realize that they often call and say, how do I get more involved with AHRA? You're a perfect example, role model. Follow what you're doing. Raise your hand, get involved. If we don't see you in the volunteer list, ask again, right? Jump forward, be willing to try new things. I think it's all those things, combined that got you where you are today.
Yes.
No, so this is great. And then, so my final piece, so I guess you'll be presenting the capstone. It'll be Monday, August 2nd in Las Vegas at our annual meeting. I think your session's from 4 to 5, you and your other, I think there's 11 of you, right? The 11 other classmates of the cohort. So for any listener that's going to be there, I hope they take time to come hear the stories. For information on the annual meeting, people can go to our website, which is www.ahra.org. And I guess, Melissa, I'll just say thanks so much for taking time today. And I'm so glad you're a member, and I'm excited to see where the future takes you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening to Medical Imaging Matters, a podcast from AHRA, the Association for Medical Imaging Management. If you have enjoyed today's episode, please be sure to subscribe, rate, and review. AHRA is proud to be the trusted association for medical imaging management professionals, offering career development programs, a comprehensive selection of educational conferences and seminars, networking opportunities, award-winning publications, the certified radiology CRA credential, and so much more. To discover all AHRA has to offer, visit our website at ahra.org. Until next time.